So I think this is the closest that war with Iran has ever looked in my entire lifetime. Everything going on right now with Hezbollah and Lebanon, Israel, and also what's still happening in Gaza. It's very scary and very interesting at the same time because people always talked about things in the Middle East being tense, especially with Iran and Israel. But it looks like we're really close to having full scale war in the Middle East, which is just insane. I mean, they sent thousands of troops to Israel to help them defend all those missiles that Iran has sent. It's obviously it's the tensest that I've ever seen this. And there's always been talks and escalations back and forth, back and forth. This to me seems like the real deal, or at least very close to it. Maybe things will smooth over, but it's not looking good because Iran is really close with Hezbollah and they seem infuriated with Israel's invasion. And I saw Israel planning to strike nuclear areas in Iran. So that would be that would definitely be something. So if you have full scale war between Iran and Israel, the United States is definitely going to get involved. There's no way that the U.S. does not help and aid them because I think if it's between Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, Israel would not be able to withstand all of that on their own. And we're not just talking weapons either. I think actual troops being sent to fight with Israel, I think is a very real possibility. Now, do I think this is necessarily going to be World War III? I don't think so, because of just the fact that I don't think China wants to get involved in this. I don't think it really benefits them to really enter this conflict in a meaningful way. And then Russia, while they have a vested interest in the Middle East, and they're obviously very close with Iran, they kind of have a relationship with Israel. Fact of the matter is, they're really preoccupied right now with the Ukraine, and Ukraine's now actually, striking Russia itself. They're actually striking into Russian territory. So they got their hands full. So it's not going to be World War III because there are people talking about that. I don't think it's necessarily going to get that far. But I think it's very possible that we finally get the war that's been promised between Iran and Israel for so many years. It's been talked about and discussed and threatened, and it looks like we might be getting close to that point, sadly. Uh Man, it's really something, especially with American troops getting in there and giving their lives. It's a really sad thing when that happens. Whether or not we should get involved, look, I know there's going to be a lot of debate about that, and I don't think necessarily just because you don't want American troops to die means that you're some kind of anti-Jewish or anything like that. There are people who have legit quarrels against Israel and have their opinions, and I'm not gonna go after people for having those beliefs. Absolutely not. That's not the point. I'm going to share that I personally think that it's worth it because Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East. They've been a strong ally. Whether you like them or hate them, they're definitely their presence in the Middle East is a definitely a net positive over a negative. And just what are you going to do? Let Israel die? Like all those people die? Because that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be like, oh, Israel is like they talk about wiping Israel off the face of the earth, just straight up. Even if Israel is not morally the best, they're not a bastion of morality a lot of the time. And some of the stuff that the IDF does, I'm not going to dispute that. But if we're going to compare to the Ayatollah and and the Iranian government, really, I don't think there's much of a comparison. And also obviously the baby killing in that happened on October 7th. I think there's just a different there's evil, right? There's morally, just and not even morally gray, just some like really fucked up shit the IDF does. Like if we're going to be real, right? But then it's like there's a scale of evil, and even the United States is on that scale of evil. If we're going to be real, like all the shit that the government has pulled, especially in the Middle East, playing their part in destabilizing things. I don't know what the end game would be though. Would it be to just take down the Ayatollah and put in a puppet democratic regime similar to, well, the Shah was not democratic, but I don't know. Our whole track record of overthrowing a government and replacing it with something else isn't very good. I mean, I guess the only two examples I can think of is Japan after World War II and West Germany after World War II. Other than that, I can't think of any example, especially in the Middle East. I think it's just not possible to really for our presence to be there and be like a force of good. And as far as being the difference between Israel being destroyed or not being destroyed, I say yes. As far as a draft, though, we have enough military personnel to help out without doing a draft. So I don't think a draft is going to happen. And I think in that case, if we're talking about conscripting people, forcing people to join the military, then in that case, I'm going to be like, yeah, maybe it's not necessarily as worth it then. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't want to die for Israel. I'm sure a lot of other people don't want to die for Israel. When you're a soldier, though, when you sign up, that is what you sign up for. Not saying, oh, just throw them all and let them all die. But it's a difference between the draft and people who are already in service and, kind of have signed up for that voluntarily, right? So, yeah, it's really scary times. And I really don't like to talk much about foreign policy and that kind of stuff because I don't claim to be an expert, especially on the Israel-Palestine thing. That's like something I really don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole just because of just the nature of it. And not necessarily how contentious it is. I don't really shy away from contentious topics. I mean, if you look at my channel history and especially certain things that I've said before, I'm not afraid to dive into things that are controversial or whatever. But I honestly just don't feel like getting too in the weeds and that kind of stuff because I want to focus more of my energy on stuff that's going on in my own soil, in my own country. And that's not to say that people who live in other countries aren't worth a damn and aren't worth anything. But if you're talking about American soldiers and American lives, that's a whole different story. And just like realistically, we have countries for a reason. Because people in each individual country is responsible for taking care of their own people. And I think we are giving too much money to a lot of these foreign countries. I think we definitely are. Is Israel one of them? I don't know. I mean, I think the way things are right now, they might need a lot of that military support. And we're also giving a lot of money to the Ukraine as well. But I don't know. It's very uncertain times right now. And I don't know what the outcome is going to be long term. I suspect, honestly, if we're going to be real, I think 100 years from now, obviously I'll be long dead. But 100 years from now, Middle East is still going to be fucked because that's just it's always been just a very hostile part of the world, and there's always been conflicts, there's always been killing, like a whole bunch of different things going on, and that's just the reality of it. Like the Middle East has always been like that, and I don't think it's ever going to change, especially with Israel and a lot of these other Arab countries. That also is like, but even Saudi Arabia and Iran is another thing that's been going on for however long Saudi Arabia's been around, since like the early 1950s, I believe. So there's a whole bunch of different countries that would be involved. It would be like just like not World War III, but a giant Middle Eastern conflict, like to the scale that we've never seen before. It looks like is maybe the way things are going. So I'm not going to say I pray because I am not religious. I consider myself atheist, or at the very least agnostic, so I'm not going to send prayers. But my thoughts are out for all the people, including the Gazans, including the people in Lebanon, including the Israelis, everybody, and the people of Iran. Because that's really what it is. It's these people in power that are, creating these conflicts and doing all this fucked up shit, and they don't really care about civilian life. They don't care about any of that. None of that matters to them. All they care about is just, doing whatever they feel like they need to do, and fuck everyone else, and fuck all the, quote unquote collateral damage, with all the civilian casualties. And that's something that all sides are responsible for. And that includes the United States of America. So it's not even like, oh, we're so much better than everyone else, in that way. War just fucking sucks. That's really that's really how I feel. And I think that's how everyone feels at the end of the day.